Hello, and welcome to the Race, Wealth, and Health Podcast, a podcast that serves to educate and empower while we explore the intersections of social justice, economic empowerment, and holistic well-being within communities of color. I am your host, Dr. Joycelyn Morris, and I invite you to join me as we dive deep into the crucial topics that shape our lives, challenge the status quo, and strive for a more equitable future for all. This week, we're back with Sabrina Lamb and talking about money matters. Let's listen in as we continue the conversation. Now, you mentioned through World of Money, or maybe even Wekeza, I think specifically, that you work with the African diaspora. Tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what does that look like? How did you get involved? Or what was your passion around expanding internationally?
So my father I come from a military family, so I've lived all over the world, grew up in different countries. And so I've always had a international perspective. I love traveling abroad, whether that is Salvador de Bahia, Brazil, or whether that's Nairobi, Kenya, or Accra, Ghana, or in Senegal, and have friends throughout the diaspora. World of Money partners with 4 schools on the continent, 4 different countries. In fact, during our virtual institute this year, my darling students in Senegal have already enrolled to attend World of Money virtual. I love that. And they're going to collaborate and interact with students here as they learn about money, the world of money. And so it's no surprise. Anyone that knows me knows it's no surprise that I'm not, engaged with, have friends with, serve with friends throughout the diaspora. And then when it comes to Wekeza, which means save and invest in Swahili, I had another aha moment. And I was speaking at a fintech conference in Nairobi, Kenya, and speaking over there, teaching as well, teaching financial education and meeting with executives from Nairobi Securities Exchange as well as Ghanaian Exchange as well. And they were saying what the barriers were in terms of investing in their own country's security, meaning, for example, you can invest in the companies listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, but you have to have in the whole share of that company. You have to pay a broker. There's a lot of, bricks or walls you have to cover to be able to, overcome in order to be able to invest. And that's true in a lot of countries around the world. There are regulatory barriers just based on your citizenship, and as well as access to holistic family financial education. And that's where Wekeza was born, in Nairobi, Kenya. From that moment, like, oh, you know how I am with ideas. Oh,
Yes.
So Wekeza is a trademark. I own the name. It is a Swahili word that's spoken in East Africa by millions of people. And so Wekeza's mission is to provide family financial education and financial services for Black immigrants, the 5 million Black immigrants and 45 million native-born African Americans residing in the United States, with holistic family financial education in multiple languages. So if you just arrived here from Nairobi or from Senegal, maybe you speak English, but can you really stand up tall and someone speaking to you in your native language? And so World of Money has a 160 digital curriculum for children. Overwhelming majority is in English, but the Wekeza adult online financial education is being translated into multiple languages spoken throughout the African diaspora, whether that's Swahili or Angolan Portuguese or Senegalese French, as Zulu in South Africa. Because if you want people to really connect with this powerful currency called money, you need to honor the diverse cultures that relate to all of us throughout the African diaspora in their native language. And also, when I was talking about the personalities, there are cultural personalities that we need to pay attention to. We have friends from the Caribbean, or who live in the Caribbean, for example, and actually throughout the Caribbean and throughout the African diaspora, which of course the Caribbean is, there's a practice called susu. It's based on trust. It's not, you can't,
Yes.
you won't hear about it on television or whatever, but those communities operate in silos on small nucleus in order to save and, buy that house or whatever. Around the corner from me is Little Senegal. And when I speak to my friends there that own a lot of those businesses on that block, how they take that money, they do business with one another, and then they send money back to Senegal, to the bank in Senegal. And I spoke to a friend that owned a store. He's from Burkina Faso in Harlem. And I said, why don't you do business with, the banks there? No one's talking to us. No one's talking to us. And so that's where Wekeza, stands alone in terms of a cultural fintech, a cultural financial company where we, see you, we talk to you, we welcome you, and you're not just somebody we pass by and don't embrace on any level.
Yeah.
And so we have to just recognize that there's different financial personalities as well as cultural personalities that Wekeza
Yeah.
embraces.
Yeah, I think you hit on something which is certainly of importance and passion for me is just that cultural relevance, right? And the cultural relevance just doesn't stop at the race, it's culture. So understanding the different cultures, the different tribes, the different communities that individuals that you're working with are coming from and trying to make sure that the content is relevant, culturally relevant for them and culturally responsive.
Huge,
So that
huge.
is no, it is. It's huge, right? Like if only we took that same approach with all of our education, but I won't sidetrack us here. But one of the things I want as you think about your work, of course, this is called the Race, Wealth, and Health podcast. How do you see the intersection of your work with those three tenets when you think about race, wealth, and health?
Let's start with race. So everyone who listens to your podcast knows about the race distinctions, I'm sure. When it comes to people that look like that are from the African diaspora, and whether you're born in America or from the diaspora, that's how I identify. I'm from the African diaspora, a native born
Hmm.
African American. And when you can talk about the access to capital for Black owned businesses, you can talk about the high percentages of us not of low home ownership as well as low credit scores and so forth. But a lot of that is because the African diaspora has not been invited in. I hear a lot of words, slogans, financial inclusion. Well, why are, for
Hmm.
example, Black immigrants and African Americans on the outside looking in? Why are payday
Yeah.
loans and check cashing and rent centers still doing very well and actually headquartered in our communities? Why is that? And a lot has to do
Yeah.
with marketing, has to do with a policy, it has to do with laws. In some states, in New York State, for example, payday lending is illegal, but they can reach you through the internet, through advertising that way.
Hmm.
But those predatory
Yeah.
legal businesses specifically target those cultures, those people who that they understand where the economic lights are off or really dim. They don't have the financial education. They think there's a check cashing place. It's online store. It's in my neighborhood. I'll go right there because they have not been taught. We have not been taught differently. And so that's specifically targeting Black people. I don't care where you're from in the world. And so
Yeah.
that obviously impacts the wealth. Now, I've been thinking about that word for a long time. Yeah, there are families in the world that have had 100 and 200 years head start when it comes to accumulating wealth. We've had
Yeah.
laws that have
Hmm.
supported them, et cetera, et cetera. I would be happy is everyone in the African diaspora experience financial security. Okay. I just spoke at a conference, the Festival for the Diaspora in Rio, and there's not one Black CEO. No, there's one because I met him, Oscar. There's only one Black CEO who's African in a country that identifies as the majority, overwhelming majority African. They claim their Africanness. And so if we got there and that all the families had options and access in their life, to me, that's wealth. I'm not saying I
Yeah.
am not in the, but sometimes it feels, well, generational wealth. Don't you want generational wealth? Well, it takes generations to experience
To build.
generational wealth. I just want you to own your own home, have
Very good.
great credit, make sure you have low debts. What do I want? If you want to own your own business, that you have access to capital, you have a pool to access to be able to experience that. I want you to have low economic distress in economic and emotional distress in your life. That's security.
Hmm.
That's what I want. Because sometimes I feel like this
Yeah.
this generational wealth implies that I can catch up with the descendants of George Washington, and I can't. And then
Right.
the third tier was what? What was
Health.
the
But
third?
before we go on that, I think what you mentioned, which I wanted to double click on, is everything that you described is basically you want financial well being. And I think you bring up a great point. I remember I had an earlier guest on, was talking about the wealth gap, and he was just basically saying, like, I'm not trying to close the wealth gap. Like, I just want people to be, to have good financial well being, which means that you are at peace, you have financial security to your point, all of your needs and the majority of your wants are taken care of. And I do think that that in and of itself, can be wealth. It's not always about, to your point, having a particular dollar amount. It's just about being in a good place and being at peace with your financial situation.
Yes,
But the third tenet was health.
it's health. So that impacts health. I mean, most of the distresses that we feel, if you peel back enough layers, it comes to money. The intersection of our health and how we feel, our ability to pay for quality health care, it goes back to
Yep.
the money, people. And sometimes in our community, don't talk about the money. Let's whisper about the money. Let's just pretend everything's wonderful. This is Disneyland, everybody. And it's
Disneyland.
not.
I was gonna say Disneyland.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not Disneyland. I hate to break it to everybody, but here comes Sabrina and telling the real news. And then I saw an email going out to my city council members, Yusuf Salam, who was one of the exonerated five. And so he was a city council member, and I understand his unjust detention and for a crime he and his friends did not commit, and he's part of or I think he's chair of the law enforcement committee with the New York City Council. That's beautiful.
Mhm.
I said to him a couple of times, I want to work together with you to lead a Harlem economic renaissance, people. Why are these lights out here? Why are these stores closed? Why is that storefront not open? Where are the business accelerators? I don't want to be talking
Yeah.
about law enforcement every single day, because there's nothing that needs to go through this community, needs to be sustained in this community. And as percentages shift, I'll just stay with Harlem for a second. We're inching
Mhm.
out. When I say we, African Americans are inching out as the majority in a formerly majority African American community. There's some here, but
Yes.
many people were forced to live. And then the business owners
Yeah.
are stuck hanging on, trying to get money out of no way. I'm saying we need to bring this conversation front and center, like we do with all the other injustices. And that needs to be front and center, with starting with education and true access. True access.
Yep. Absolutely. Gentrification happens. And so when there aren't policies, to your point, that are supporting both the residents and business owners in those communities to make sure that they're able to continue, and there's more of a focus on development and not having restrictions around developers to make sure that they're ensuring that people don't get kicked out of their own neighborhoods and aren't forced out of the neighborhoods that they built, right?
Well, it's
Is
happening. It's
super,
already
super important.
happening. 100,000
It always
people,
it
families
does though,
left
right?
New
Like we
York State in the last couple of
Yeah.
years. More will go. And then we'll look around. Well,
Yeah.
where did Sammy and his mother, where did they go?
Yeah.
Couldn't afford to live
Yeah.
here.
And yeah, it gets expensive. But I think, that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, yeah, as we think about this holistic conversation we've had, what do you feel that we, as maybe both individuals and community members, should be thinking about when it comes to understanding both financial literacy, but I think a lot of what we talked about, which is, fighting towards and for both racial and economic equality.
Mhm. Understanding that a lot of the power is in your own hands. It starts with your own
Mm,
financial education. It comes from supporting organizations such as World of Money, enrolling your children, because children understand the power of money. They've been watching how you've been interacting with it for all of their young life before they could even have,
mhm,
the power of their own speech, and as well as
mhm.
determining to hit the reset button in your own life. And I'm not the reset button doesn't necessarily come one time. It comes often. It comes often for me as well. And making sure that you are rearranging your behaviors in your own life, in your families, that it's going to benefit you long term. I always say to World of Money's Leadership Council, thank you for being an advocate for World of Money. That's great. You please benefit from the alliance as well as from the information, and set a time, for
Mhm.
example, 5 years, 3 years, that you're going to own your own homes. That there's
Yeah.
power in ownership. So there's absolutely things that or behaviors, actions that everybody can take now that don't require external co-signing, that you can do with yourself, and that may come from not spending so much on all of your wants, on items that have zero financial value, and making sure that any money that you're using is building from interest rates with regard to a savings account or investment in US publicly traded companies, investing in making sure that you have your estate planning in order, that you prepaid your funerals, that you own property, that you know how to avoid all those things that we can do, I can do, we can do without anyone saying, giving you permission to do so.
Absolutely. And then as we think about that, what's next for you? What's next for you in the organization? I know you have an upcoming children's book, but what are some other things that you want our listeners to keep in mind, and even some resources that you may have that they can use as they're trying to listening to this episode and thinking about getting their financial house in order?
Sure. So definitely, if you have children ages 7 to 18, enroll them into World of Money's Youth Financial Education Training Institute in July. The week of the
Hmm.
15th is virtual, so no matter where you are listening in the world, your child can attend, or a friend who has a child can attend. And then our in-person sessions are beginning July 8th, and then the last week of July. But if you go to worldofmoney.org, you can see all the dates and so forth to register your children and share with others to register their children. Then next, go to Wekeza, WEKEZA.com, and sign up for the wait list. We have workshops and resources for parents, for families, and no matter where you are in from the African diaspora. And then finally, my book, Do I Look Like an ATM? A Parent's Guide to Raising Financially Responsible Children. It's on Amazon, and encourage everyone to take a read from there, and absolutely to determine to uncover your own research or your own inventory when it comes to your relationship with money.
Awesome. Awesome. And as we close out, Sabrina, which I can't believe it's almost time for us to wrap up, but what's one quote or, yeah, one quotable that you would leave that either you live by or it's maybe something that you often give to your participants or students in your courses?
Save your money and save yourself.
Hmm. Okay.
It shouldn't be that deep. It shouldn't be that deep.
But it is, right? There's so many ways we can look at that. It can be looked at as by saving your money, you're also saving yourself, right? From
And
the unnecessary,
World
yeah.
of Money's motto is learn, earn, save, invest, and donate. And sometimes I'm asked, well, what does donate have to do with it? That, nothing
Hmm.
can enter a tight fist. So I encourage everyone to get involved in a nonprofit organization, your community, because that's a spiritual duty to serve others without any expectation on, a financial reward, to serve the planet. And by doing so, the wave comes back to you. But that's not why you do it, but that's what happens. So learn, earn, save,
Hmm.
invest, and donate. World of Money's motto. And save your money, and then you'll save yourself.
Yeah. That's amazing. And just lastly, what do you want listeners to take away from today's conversation? If there are any actionable steps, anything that you haven't already provided?
Well, I thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. We need more of,
Yes.
podcasts such as Reese Wealth and Health, and to understand that there's an intersection to all of it. And let's just turn on the economic lights. Turn on the
Hmm.
economic lights.
Yeah. It's so important that, financial literacy. And that's why I really wanted to have you on. I'm so excited that you were able to join. I think you already gave in terms of links, because I want our listeners to be able to follow you. You already gave the links for World of Money, worldofmoney.org, Wekeza.com, which I'll include those links in the show notes. Any other links or ways that they can even follow you personally?
Sure, Miss Sabrina Lamb on Instagram. Wekeza is on Instagram. World of Money is on Instagram. And Instagram and definitely on Twitter as well. And so, connect that way as well.
I love it. I love it. I'm so excited for everything to come with World of Money. I consider it a privilege to be a part of the organization and helping out, and just truly in awe of all the amazing work that you've done across the diaspora, not just locally, but internationally. And so, again, congrats and hats off to you, Sabrina, for the work that you're doing. It's so important in our community. And I thank you so much for taking time to chat with me and provide our listeners with some good nuggets and things that they should be thinking about as they're either working with themselves or even being thoughtful about the message that they want to send to their kids around money. So
Excellent.
thank you
Honor
so
to be
much,
here.
Sabrina, for
Thank you so
joining.
much.
All right. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Well, that's all for today, folks. Enjoyed the show? Be sure to like and rate the podcast. You can find the Race, Wealth, and Health podcast on multiple platforms, including Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode. I also want to hear from you, so don't forget to connect with me on social media. You can follow the podcast on Instagram and Facebook at Race Wealth Health. By joining the online community, you'll stay updated on the latest episodes, behind the scenes insights, and engaging discussions. Share your thoughts, comments, and questions there. I appreciate your support in sharing the podcast with your friends, family, and colleagues who may also find value in these conversations. Thank you again for joining me on this journey. Until next time, take care, stay informed, and keep up the good fight for equality.